Hi, I'm joined by Craig Resnick, Vice President at ARC Advisory Group. Welcome, Craig.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here.
So I recently read an article that you wrote regarding the top technology trends for manufacturers and processors in 2019. Now, my first question is, with the accelerating trend or accelerating number of new technology trends that are constantly hitting the market, how do you decide what trends should be on that list?
Well, it's interesting because rather than just try to get to the leading or bleeding edge trends that you may be reading about, we do is at ARC, because of the amount of customers we have and the end users and OEMs, a lot of times we talk to them and we talk about what are the things that they're seeing, but more importantly, what are the things that they actually would consider evaluating, purchasing, maybe becoming a beta site for. So the idea is we try to keep the trends that are leading edge, but not bleeding edge, shall we say. So what we'll do is, for example, if someone were to say what's a top, leading edge or bleeding edge trend today, a lot of times people might say blockchain. And certainly in areas where track and trace is of significance, you could certainly make a very valid point for that. But at this point, a lot of the customers aren't ready to make a commitment yet to blockchain. So therefore, I may not include it as a trend this year, but I may include it as a trend next year, depending on how on what the customers are telling us. But it's really a way of trying to be leading edge, not bleeding edge, but making sure that we're keeping in close touch with our customers and getting into the things that what are they thinking about, what are their concerns, and what are some of the things that they would really feel would be really beneficial to them in their manufacturing factories and processes.
So two of the trends or technologies that you did talk about are augmented reality and virtual reality. So what types of applications are these being deployed in?
Well, augmented reality gets us very excited at ARC because think of this as a maintenance person. You want to have the best set of tools that you possibly can. And if now, as you're walking around the factory floor, the plant floor, if you had something that guided you, that could tell you based on your location, or maybe you're scanning a QR code, and you could get the drawings for that product. You could actually have like X-ray vision and be able to look inside a closed cabinet and see what's inside. Have variables brought to the screen to let you know what are some of the temperatures, pressures, levels, flows, brought right as you're staring at the object. So what it's doing is it's really supplementing your intelligence. So it's like having your own personal assistant by having augmented reality, and that's something that we can't speak highly enough about, and it's something that really excites the customers. When it comes to virtual reality, think of it. Years ago, when you trained to be a pilot, you went into a simulator and you could simulate things you certainly did not want to practice while you're up in the sky. For blown engines and crash landings. What virtual reality does is it enables you to be able to simulate anything that could possibly go wrong in the plant and be able to now prepare yourself for how you would put together a response plan to make sure that everybody's safe and the processes can be adequately shut down. So, and in today's world, for training, it's difficult for somebody to say, I'm going to leave the factory and I'm going to go for a week training course. At the same time, sometimes people might say, well, we'll just go home at night and watch YouTube videos. That may not be quite enough training to really learn how to handle yourself in a disaster situation. So this enables you to immerse yourself in the situation and really be able to understand what it takes to be able to put together a proper response. And what's interesting with virtual reality is that in a world in which the baby boomers are retiring and the millennials are in many cases are taking those spots, millennials are very comfortable with gaming. So whether it be sometimes the headgear, sometimes being in that environment, it actually attracts people to manufacturing. So people that may not have considered a manufacturing career because they may think of it as using a lot of 20, 30, 40-year-old equipment, when they get to realize that they're able to leverage some of the things that they do for fun, for gaming, and now they can use some of that technology in the factory floor, it is an added incentive to get people to want to maybe pursue a career in manufacturing. So we're very excited for both augmented reality and virtual reality, and the customers are really looking into deploying those solutions.
So in your article, you also mentioned the technology trend of applications that are deploying both cloud and edge solutions. So can you explain why manufacturers and processors are deploying both?
Well, it's interesting because when we would talk to a lot of the manufacturers, they would say, "Well, I like cloud for, say, things like keeping my historian data, but I like edge because I want to have things when I'm doing control. I want to have things at the plant level." And sometimes, believe it or not, there's been a disconnect where they think they can't have both. The reality is, you have to have both. To take advantage of the economies of scale of the cloud, the security of the cloud, data that's not being used in real time. You want to make sure you have a place off-site, safe and secure, where that data can be stored. That way, if there's any sort of a disaster within the plant, all that old historian data is now safe. At the same time, customers might want to say, we need processes we need to make decisions sometimes based in milliseconds, sometimes even nanoseconds. And they want to make sure that computer processing is done on site and actually embedded in the device. So that's when we talk about the edge. So in reality, what people are going to come up with is it's really going to be a hybrid solution. You're going to be doing a lot of the real-time control and the real-time analytics at the edge. But as far as where is that data going to go, that data is going to eventually end up in the cloud. And that's where the data is going to be stored and where that data can be called from and where that data can be used, working with other portions of ERP, other business systems. So you really have to have this hybrid environment. And what we were finding is that customers felt as though, I'm either on the edge or I'm in the cloud. And the idea is you really have to do both.
So another trend we've seen has been of IT and OT functionality rapidly converging at manufacturers and processors. We've also seen a big uptick in the same companies being hacked and suffering security breaches. So you call out the specific trend of IT, OT, cybersecurity convergence in your article. Can you sort of explain why you highlight the convergence of both of these trends?
Well, what's really happened is, IT/OT convergence has been going on, for several years, and that's something we certainly identified as a trend, several years ago, and now it's really becoming, commonplace. But what's happening is that when it comes to cybersecurity, it affects all sides of the organization. And in many cases, with IT/OT convergence, a lot of times the IT folks had greater experience in dealing with cybersecurity and firewalls and a lot of that technology. So what we're finding is that as the IT and OT groups are converging, we're trying to leverage the cybersecurity expertise that's often found in IT and applying that on the OT side of the business. It's interesting because one of the challenges you originally had in IT/OT convergence was IT typically had shorter life cycle products, and they tended to deal in more state-of-the-art technology. On the other hand, in OT, you had long life cycle products, but products that never failed. There was never any such thing as downtime. You could never take these systems down for patches or updates because, a system must run 24/7, 365. But what we're finding is that if you can combine that expertise in IT with IT/OT convergence, now they're starting to understand, what are some of the needs of OT, which is the fact that, longer product life cycles running in real time. So what we find is that the convergence of both is resulting in making better connectivity and cybersecurity decisions in OT that couldn't have been made when the two groups were separate. So what we're finding is that now that the groups are getting together, we're taking a lot of the technology from IT and applying a lot of those cybersecurity principles in OT, seeing that all converge.
So a final trend that you call out is that more assets will be deploying digital twin technology. So what has changed regarding digital twins, and why is now a great time for deployment?
I think because with digital twin, you're now getting to the point, where it's becoming productized. At one time, it was something that may have been created as a custom project. You may have had to go in and you may have had to do laser scans of the plant to kind of simulate the process. So now you can have the machine and then the simulated version of the machine. But now you're to the point where you're actually be able to create digital twins of specific assets. Let's say, for example, like motors and drives. So now you have the physical motor or the physical drive. Now you have the virtual version of the motor and drive, and now you can test it. You can deploy it. You can run it under different circumstances. So you're actually testing the product before you're deploying the product. And now that can help you make engineering changes as far as how the product is deployed and maybe be able to make adjustments to the application itself. So now what we're seeing is that now when you're buying more of say some of the traditional automation assets, that now it's coming with its avatar, shall we say. It's actually coming with its digital twin. So you're getting to the point where it is becoming more something that's really more productized, and by doing that, it's making it more available to the masses. So no longer is doing digital twin a very expensive special project that might take a lot of CapEx dollars. Now it's something that's kind of found its way more into the mainstream. So we really anticipate the whole digital twin market picking up just because of that, prices coming down and availability and accessibility really going up.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Craig, for sharing your insights today.
Thanks, Chris.
This is Chris Cunnane coming to you from ARC Advisory Group's Orlando Forum. Thanks for watching.